It's not even here. It's not this high in the frame. It's this high. There's nothing really special about that, especially since it starts here and ends here.
Milky Way composition. Some of you may be struggling with this, so I wanted to give you a foundation to start from. Number 1. Break the planes. We separate our grid of the image in a rule of thirds. You got lines going across the third that's a vertical, line that's horizontal, and at these thirds you can cross them with elements, a tall structure, or something coming from the right to the left. That's making it much more strong. Number 2, balance the positive space with the negative space. There's going to be negative elements in your framing that you don't want, and positive elements. Your Milky Way, your really cool foreground, anything that you've light painted, those are all positive elements. Everything else is negative space. And if you can balance the two together in your final crop, in your final production of the image, you'll have a much stronger composition. Number 3, weight on the left. This is the most biased for Northern Hemisphere Milky Way than any of the other tips. So while you're looking at me from your perspective, the Milky Way here is on the right side, and this space right here on the left is empty. And if you have something with weight, some structure, some interest right there, that weight will counter the weight of the core and come together very nicely. Number 4, shape from top to bottom. So looking at, here's the Milky Way coming in, you have some shapes over here or shapes over there that come from the top all the way down to the bottom. So while you're breaking the plane and doing all of that, you've also got something of interest that is going across the plane from top of the frame down to the bottom. 5, framing the core. This is something that you've already got and you've already done most likely. But when you have an element of cool rock sticking straight up, or maybe a thing that causes a frame on the top and the bottom and it looks like a window and you're seeing the Milky Way core through it, that's a great way to bring interest into your image.
You don't have to do all 5. You just need to do one of them. And so when you're breaking the plane, or you're balancing the negative and positive space, or you're framing, how can you make this work? Well, one perfect example is Neil Zingel's image. If you go to our Facebook page and check out the most recent winner of February Photog Favorite, Neil Zingel got an amazing shot with the Milky Way at this time of year with this kind of Milky Way coming across the screen. And so it was fantastic. So let's talk about how this comes out and looks better. I'm going to go a little darker on me, just so that blue will pop up against my background. There we go. Aaron looks ridiculously dark, but it's nighttime, Milky Way time. Let's focus on the shapes that I'm drawing. So first off, let's talk about breaking the plane. If you want to work on breaking the plane, you want to make sure that you take those thirds that you have. No, don't switch. You want to take those thirds that you have in your frame and piece them in a way that you break it. This Milky Way at this season isn't quite coming up to break the frame unless you compose your frame like this. You might go and square it right on the core. And so with a situation of this, how can you deal with the other options that you have for making a really strong composition show up? And that's the obvious negative and positive space. So we have this space right here, and I'm going to do it with this color. So you can see this space and this space above the Milky Way. How do you get those weights to work together well? How do you make those show up strong? Because you have those negative, and then this is positive right here. That's the positive space. So what can you put in there? One thing that Neil Zingel did very, very well was getting a rock that was framing right here and went down. These rocks were really cool, and they started off in the right. They were bigger and came down. That's one of the options. That shape that comes from the top third to the bottom third. In his case, it didn't break the top third plane. It was actually down here in the middle, but because it was framing in underneath this and framing that Milky Way, plus it gave, a weight in this area that balanced out the weight up in this area, it had that balance, it had the framing, and it also put the weight on the left. How did it put the weight on the left? If you've seen the picture, there's a rock right here. It breaks the plane right there. That's when it breaks that plane, And it had this really, really amazing feature of these rock indentations that were set with lights that could glow. Oh, it's amazing. Seriously, look for the picture right now. Go to photogadventures.com and you'll see the image on the front page as Neil Zingel's winner of the February Photog favorite. You'll see the image that I'm talking about. So this is fantastic. I just have to hope everything's working and the audio is working because I can't even see the comments right now. So with all these elements combined, he ticked off a few of my boxes. Well, let's look at those boxes again. Now, those boxes are going to be white. And so let's just cover my face. Break the plane, balance negative and positive space, weight on left, shape from top third to bottom, framing. So what did he do? He broke the plane. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and copy this. I'm going to push this right up here. And I'm going to move this guy right up next to my other images that I'm writing right now. Ooh, that went really far. If you guys haven't seen the moon video, check it out. So now we got it right next to each other. So here's the image that I've been drawing on. Here's all the things that we've been doing to make this pop out. And then look at this. What's he doing? How's he breaking the plane? He's breaking the plane right here. And he's also, I need to come off of that. I'm going to come off of that shape. He's breaking the plane right here. He has that plane broken, and he hasn't broken this plane with anything. It's just stars. But the weight of the rocks that are right here and continue on to here, these rocks that he has, those are helping carrying the weight. So in an early Milky Way season like this, when you have a Milky Way that's going to come across your sky and kind of stay low, not really come, let's say it's over here, and it's not going to go and connect with the ground, it's not going straight up, it's not doing a whole total vertical. That was a brilliant way of balancing out your weight. So I showed a picture of a Milky Way that was kind of like, it was more like this one. And this Milky Way, let me come into this space. How do you balance out the space with this? Because you're dealing with this space and this space. Where do you put your foreground? Obviously, you're going to put your foreground over here. And it's easy to say, keep the weight on the left, right here. I put the weight right on top of me. And how am I doing on time? Oh, good. It's only 7:18. Yes. So if the weight's going to be here, what can you do? If you saw that thumbnail, which you can, I guess I could quickly do this and let you guys see that thumbnail again. You can see how in this space right here, let me go big, in this space up top, there's stuff missing that's in this space on the right. So what is it, guys? Can you say it? Oh, look, I'm showing up in the green of the trees. Whew. It's very, very clear. Oh, can I draw on this? No, I can't. Okay. Darn. It's very clear that there's something missing on the left. There's no weight on the left of this left image. And so when you look at it here, it got an interesting distant foreground, but that stuff, it doesn't carry the image. It really is good. It's okay, but it's not carrying the image. The goal here was to get a reflection in this water of the Milky Way, and all I really got was the light pollution to reflect. So I didn't have anything great about that. That wasn't strong. And so I'm going to get a chance to look at your guys' comments while I talk about this. Sweet. Ticking Aaron's boxes is my life goal. I don't know what that context is for, but Neil. So if I have a space that's taken up like this, and then I got this kind of boring, just distant, and it's not even here. It's not this high in the frame. It's this high. There's nothing really special about that, especially since it starts here and ends here. Remember one of the rules? It was to start a shape from the top to the bottom in some way. This shape, if it would have gone like this, that could be really cool. That could be really interesting. But if it doesn't do that, you know, blah. So let me show you a picture example from my Goblin Valley shot back in 2016. This 2016 picture is one that I'm very proud of as a complete beginner photographer, you know? I'm a complete beginner to this world. And there's that. Okay, cool. Pics, just want to find it, make sure I get it quickly. This image is one of those examples that I hope that you guys who are completely brand new to Milky Way photography can look at this and go, oh, okay, I can do that. I can do that this year in one day. I don't have to be Eric Benedetti, master Milky Way photographer. I don't have to have the skills of all this post-processing. All I have to do is get there, get one single frame, and get it shot and get some good light painting. And that's what happened that went really well here. In fact, I'm gonna have to borrow a keyboard just so that I can pull it up. So, where's it showing up on my frame? Oh, there it is. Because this is a good example of actually using that space that I'm talking about. So let me show the IMAX screen. See this space right here? Let's go huge again. I don't know why the new OS is closing that when I switch windows. But this is a good example of a shape that starts in the left and goes down. Now this is weighted on the left. I haven't really explained further on the weighted on the left, and let's hit it right now. What is, for us, Northern Hemisphere people, what does the Milky Way typically look like? I mean, it's almost always this diagonal shape with a big old ball of core right here, and it's on the right. It is gonna almost always be on that right. And so our left has to have something that balances out with it. When we're talking about balancing out the negative and positive space, it's kind of redundant to say weight on the left. But to help you guys have it really clear in your mind, that is a great way to get weight on your left. Or actually, I should say it the correct way I wanted to say it. That is a great way to get balance between your negative and positive space by having weight on the left. So when you look at this core coming off, I have a little bit of framing as it's been making contact and kind of has a relationship with this. And these rocks right here kind of cradle this detailed part of the core. They do, they kind of cradle it right there. But then this shape up here, imagine if this shape just kind of piddled out right across this screen. That wouldn't be as cool. But the fact that this guy right here is way up in the top third, comes down to the middle third, and enters in with a line that connects to the lower third and comes back out of the lower third, that's what makes this so strong. Those of you watching, and I'm gonna point at the camera, so I want the camera to see me. Those of you watching who are coming with us to the Southern Utah workshop, we're gonna get a shot exactly at those hoodoos. Not so that you can feel like you're copying someone else's shot, just so that you can get these kind of examples, see how to put it into practice, but then we're gonna leave from that spot and we're gonna go all over Goblin Valley. And you'll split up in a small group with Brendan, a small group with myself, and then myself, I don't know what my accent was there. Go with me, and we're gonna go different spots all over Goblin Valley, and you'll have 2 or 3 different compositions that you'll get that night. It's freaking amazing. That is Aaron's new name, Aaron. Oh man, I can't wait to go back and read your guys' comments. I have no idea where we're going with this. Hey, there's a big all caps question. Yes. Oh, did he place the rock in the 1/3 intersection? I don't know if that was a joke or a big sincere question. But this space that I have for the rock is about here, and I think it's just a little low from breaking the top plane, depending on where I draw the lines. So I can say, Lonnie, that's close. Now, El Rosario says, how do you think it should be if the Milky Way is vertical? You read my mind. And where am I? This is where I am. Boom. I'm gonna go like that, and then go like that one. What if the Milky Way is vertical? I'm not gonna draw any more of these, you got it. What if it's this? No, this. What if it's that? What do? Wow, I mean, seriously, you've got all sorts of different options that you can do. Imagine if we have something, let's see, we'll go over here. So I'm leaving this space open for me. You can have a really cool dune that's coming off. That's not really what it, oh, you guys can't see that color at all. A really cool dune or a structure with a peak, and it could have some Milky Way coming off the top of that. So a vertical, you can play with it with the relationship of another shape. So what do you have to make sure you do? Balance out your positive negative space. Put weight on the left. In this case, you could do weight in the dead center because you have this vertical Milky Way that's symmetrical if you wanted to put it dead center. It's really neat to kind of have this stack coming out of something that's this core of Milky Way glory that has a fire just flaming up into the sky. And so it can be really, really neat to have a relationship with some other object when you're doing your framing like this. So when you have a vertical Milky Way, what if you left it on the right side of the image? No, that's technically the left side of the image, right? No, it's the right side when you're looking at it, but for you guys, it's over here. So what if you guys played with that? Well, what are some of the successful ways that I've played with that? I'm gonna come off of it a little bit. Some of the successful ways that I've had playing with this is dealing with something that has an interesting shape that comes from my perspective and has a different perspective. A lot of man-made objects. One of my favorite ones is the trestle. Am I on that? Nope. I wanted to go fat, and that's the fattest it can be. So the trestle can be this shape that I'm next to it, I'm underneath it. So picture a distant, perspective of this trestle, really big logs next to me, or pylons, and then the pylons are smaller, and the pylons are smaller. It's not exactly like this. Those of you who've been to the trestle, you've seen it. It's roughly like this as the tracks go off like this. That's not very good art perspective, but you get the idea. I'm gonna come over to the Milky Way side. You get the idea. And with that, I got a leaning line going towards my core, and typically my core will be above this. And so I drew that whole trestle in the wrong spot. So let me just pull it down. So if I bring the trestle where it typically is, it's gonna be down here, kind of leading towards the core, and the core is gonna overlap it. So this trestle is going to lead my eye to there, and it's going to be a little bit less, there's going to be a lot more space on this side. So let's move this over. I would frame my shot so that I take up the space a little differently, so that I get some space over here to balance out the negative space up here. And hopefully, in this case, I know that I've had a trestle continue. It's not really looking good continuing, but you get the idea. It continues on. And so you lay something like this vertical object on a man-made object that's drawing some interest towards that core. Typically, when it's vertical for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, you got it low to the horizon. And so that's a tough part, is you got to get it to where there's not mountains blocking it. You got to make it so your features are cool. Well, another way that I deal with the vertical Milky Way is this way. And you know what? I think I drew this all the way off to the left too much. Nope. Do this, please. And let's bring it over to the third. Now imagine I'm playing it down this third. What am I going to possibly do? What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a chasm. So I have this distant horizon. Well, let's draw the horizon under the Milky Way core. And then I've got this interesting chasm coming out here. And in front of me, there's just space for you to see what is this rock wall. And then I'm picturing goosenecks specifically. You have no idea what that is, especially the way that it's coming across on the screen in this green screen. So let me just show you this. I will show you a picture of it that is a lot easier to get to. So this goosenecks, this is also a 2016 picture. And so this is a picture that you guys can get this year. And am I recognizing it? Is it that? Yeah, it's that. Okay. So check out this gooseneck shot. Now this is not a good example of vertical timeline because this is not a moment when it was vertical. But the gooseneck, I have this shape over here that I can play with and use my vertical in a nice comfortable balance of negative space up here with the positive space down here. Now negative is anything but your subject. And so if you have a good foreground that's interesting, it can be positive space. Stuff like this river is very positive space as the eyes are attracted to the light on it. And then you get attracted to other colors in the image. And so those become positive space. So you can have light pollution work positively for you and become a positive element and not just blank, empty sky like it typically is. So in this shot, this was tough. My composition with this Milky Way coming here and then going towards this core, it could have been stronger with a more wide lens. If I had a more wide lens, I could have captured a little bit more in here, seen a little bit more on the foreground, and I would have liked it. And this angle was just the most of the Milky Way that I could keep in, and I really liked that. But it led right through here towards this curve, which curves around and then goes around this gooseneck. So something like a man-made object or a chasm can be really good to play with your vertical Milky Way. Your vertical Milky Way being something that tougher to work with, maybe work it off of something like a peak of a dune, a peak of a mountain, a hay bale stack that has an interesting hay bale that goes right off into the vertical Milky Way. It can be really, really great to come off of something and get framed by that, leading up the object towards the rest of the Milky Way and then carrying on. And having a chasm, that space underneath, it is such a unique space. You saw it with an angled Milky Way like that. It can kind of seem almost incongruous to the shapes down below. But a vertical Milky Way has a great feature, and then you know what it is, you recognize it, and then the stuff down below has the motion in your image, has the motion element in your composition. So let's go on to the next. Wee hours of the morning starting in June, you get a nice nearly vertical Milky Way over the goosenecks. Phil Sisto is completely correct. He's been there, he's seen it. And so let's go over to my iPad again, and let's talk about, vertical Milky Way we've nailed. Let's just refresh ourselves. Oh, yeah, we're forgetting about one, forgetting about a big one. So what about this guy? Panoramas. Panoramas are challenging, and I'm going to walk back and forth like I'm doing some meeting. Panoramas are challenging because you are going to have a composition that you're seeing, but only after you stitch everything together. So you've got to be smart enough to think, okay, if I stitch here, 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 and get together, this weight will be here, that balance will be there. I'll break the plane with that. I'll break the plane here again in the lower third. I got a nice shape that's gonna come down and flow. There's also a really cool weight on the left. Okay, yeah, I like that. And you can see all of that in your panorama. And it's tough to really know exactly how it's going to work. And so how do you take care of it? How do you balance your composition with panorama? Easy mode. You take extra. You just like cover all the way over here on the top layer. Boom, 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 boom. Take picture, take picture, take picture. And then go to your lower layer. And you go way past the Milky Way and you go way past the core. And that is how you make sure you have tons of space covered. And what do you really pay attention to? You really pay attention to what's precisely underneath. What if you had this? That shape blocks the core, but you're coming off of it and doing that. Interesting. I wouldn't make a decision to block the core ever in my situation. So what if you just had a shape that did this? It happens a lot. There's nothing really that's breaking the plane any higher than all the other elements. They're all so uniformly at that height. So what do you do? What do you do to make sure that you get that Milky Way core going over something that would be interesting? Well, let's follow some of the rules. What if we had a shape that broke the third? Up in the third and up here. That shape is interesting. I'm getting a panorama that's blocking out this section of the Milky Way, but that's not the prize section of the Milky Way. The prize section's right on my face right now. Now we have, our planes have been broken. Oh, I don't have that marker on. Let me just get a nice straight third. Nope, don't change picture, please. That's not a third. Roughly there. You're going in and out of the third with your core. You're starting below and coming up even, so that's great. You have Milky Way in all 3 thirds. That's fantastic. Your foreground is doing the same, being in all 3 thirds. That's fantastic. Your weight is on the left to balance out with the weight on the right. That's fantastic. I've gone through how many? Balance, negative and positive space. Okay, so the negative space up above here, underneath here, does it balance out with this shape and this shape? Well, it certainly does. If you were to add those together, that would be solid. And it doesn't have to be like you match it perfectly. It's just important that you have some balance, that your eye can feel rest. Okay, it's balanced. So you got balance, you got weight on the left, you break in the planes, you've got interest with a shape that's going from the top third down to the bottom. What was the 5th one? I don't even remember. What am I not thinking of? Break the plane, balance negative positive, weight on left, shape from top to third, framing. Yes, that's the one I keep thinking or keep going past. Framing. Well, when I had that thumbnail up, what made those bottom two pictures work out well? What made those bottom two pictures work out? Well, let's talk about it. Let's look at it. So I'm gonna pull it up. Are you planning on going to Pennsylvania, Mike Maxwell asks. Well, Pennsylvania is one place that we consider going for a club. Camera club. Mike, do you have a camera club out there that you would know of that has more than 30 people that we can come teach? Because that would be fun, and we'd be glad to do it. Pulling up that picture. Pulling up that picture now. So I'm going to go full screen. Oh, that's right, it doesn't matter because when I do, you guys don't see it anyway. So I'll go full screen once I get you over here. I have a beautiful vertical Milky Way panel, 7 wide, 3 high, total of 21 photos. I feel you, Mike. I'm hoping to get some of those here this weekend. Not iPad Chroma. I want to show my screen. So let's look at this picture, guys. This is the thumbnail again, and let's go full screen. This bottom one has the same Milky Way, same night. Kathy Henahan should remember this. We were both there. So what makes this image okay while this one is great? That's the framing. We have a really great relationship with this shape right here being right underneath it. And then an added bonus is that it frames the core of the Milky Way. It looks awesome. When you look at this image, you have more of the Milky Way. So why isn't that better? Well, just because this Milky Way getting kind of intersected by this right at the money spot, it's not as good a balance, especially since you look at it and this shape is very simple and plain and kind of stays all in the same third. The space underneath the bridge is only context that it actually has a bridge there. And then a lot of negative space. Could balance out with this negative space, but the rest of the image is not as strong. Not as strong as where we'd like it to go. So let me show you guys that image in full glory. And now I gotta go listener adventure. Now let's go to natural bridges. Where are you, my friend? There's the raw. Another example, guys, another example of something that you can do right away. This is not very post-processed. You probably look at it, some of you think, you know, Aaron, it could be more. You could have done more on this. Absolutely, I could have. Oh, why does it keep doing that? That's a pain. Let's go back big again, please. So why didn't I do more? Because I want you guys to know that this kind of stuff you can learn instantly. You can learn and do this now. You get out there with the Milky Way, you get your exposure right, you get all your settings set just sweetly that you have a nice exposure for the core. You can look at my video for the histogram and how you follow it. And then you've got something that you don't have to do anything to. Now, the other best part is you have to go to a place like Owachomo Bridge and Natural Bridges National Monument where it's completely light pollution free. It's so dark. It's one of the international dark sky parks and one of the first ever made. So look at this image. The best parts about it is not Aaron King up here. Oh, I forgot that once I did that, it was going to move a small screen. I hate you, new OS. This space right here is very open. I mean, this could be all seen as negative, but you do have great lights coming through this part. And so the eye sees positive space, and it continues on to give the context of where this is coming from. This core is framed up awesomely in the eye of this bridge. And now, here's the key elements of that shape going from top third to the lower third and why it's so fantastic. I moved positions, and with us being underneath the bridge, we have this line coming all the way down and doing such an interesting shape going over here, and then this line coming up and breaking the third and then going back down. Even though this is all black, it's great. If this was cut off, this would seem a little top heavy. But the fact that it's not cut off means that this isn't so top heavy. And this negative space and this negative space kind of work together to balance each other out, which is funny to say that negative space is balancing off negative space. But the fact that it's different, it's foreground, it's land versus sky, it comes across that way. The light painting, low-level lighting was just perfect on here. Jeff Peterson had it just right with us. Kathy and I, we loved this night 2 Aprils ago already. Man, that was 2 years ago, Kathy. This is so neat how it comes off the third and goes up to the top. Owachomo Bridge is fantastic. Like we said in that video that you just saw, man, if you want and you like these pictures, you can come and join us out at these places for workshops. I'm certain I've run out of time. It's 7:41. How many people had questions that I didn't get the chance to answer? In composition, there really isn't something that you should worry too heavily about making sure you hit all the rules. That's not what's important. What's important is that you hit at least one. You hit at least two, I should say, because with only one, it would probably look a little funny and it could use more. So let's look at those rules one more time. Break the plane. Balance your negative and positive space. Balance that negative space with the positive space. And wait on the left. Cool, I can point to it, kind of. I don't know if that's helpful. Wait on the left, and I say that because of the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere or doing a panorama, the weight on the left won't be the same. Southern Hemisphere panoramas, that core is at the top of that arch. It's not at the right or left, so it's a much different game, a different ball game. Shape from the top third to the bottom, some shape, something, possibly something that you can do. And then if you can do framing, oh, it's glorious. You guys, I am going to show you guys the chat just because I want to show you an image that you have heard me talk about today. I said go to our page, but you got to see it. You got to see it for yourself. This Milky Way right now, this was taken February, about 15 days ago, 16 days ago, in Joshua Tree, Neil Zingle. Let's celebrate it one more time. Oh yeah. Gosh, that's awesome. It's so good. This guy right here, the Iron Giant hanging out in the middle, this balances it so well by breaking the plane up here, bringing more interest to a bunch of rocks that were kind of similar, as well as these rocks right here. They frame that core. They cradle it a little bit and they start off of it. He could have had these rocks underneath the core over here, but he had the core come off of them. With little framing in mind, it became stronger. This is a panorama, and he let this Milky Way go off the screen and come all the way back down. And so this part over here in the rocks is not important, but they connect with this, the rest of the element, the color, the scheme, everything. It's just beautiful, Neil. Just absolutely beautiful. If you guys want to see that picture again, you can check it out at photoggadventures.com or at our Facebook page. You can see the video where we do a Monday Moment of Envy featuring it, and I gush and love all about it. But guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm Aaron King with Photog Adventures. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us this whole time and watching Photog Adventures and sticking with us and listening to the podcast. We love you. Thank you so much. Have a great night.